Build and Inspire podcast. We meet incredible people building amazing things, so you'll be inspired to build what you're passionate about.
All right, so these are the avocados that I grew up eating and that I still eat. These are the ones that are coming from the tree.
Jesus.
Look at my head for scale.
Yeah.
Head, but
So is the fruit inside that all good?
yep, all good. It's exactly like an avocado, like a Hass avocado that you would eat.
Yeah.
Exactly the same thing.
Dude, that's money.
Pretty much tastes the same, and these are all free because it comes from the tree in the backyard.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is great. So I can't imagine, like, people. I mean, how much is a Hass avocado now over there? Like,
Oh, it's
in
got to
New
be
York,
like
it's like $5-6 or
a
something.
couple bucks. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't go to Whole Foods or Trader Joe's or anything. My grandmother might interrupt us trying to look for these now.
Okay.
So you're an adventure coach, right? Is that how you would classify yourself exactly, or?
Oh, it's the ultimate challenge in how to classify myself. Yeah. So my background is as a mountain climber. So that's been my trade. I've been climbing mountains for the past, 25 years, but professionally for the past 22 years.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a little odd to like pause and think about that. And there's been ebbs and flows in the volume and the amount of time I've spent in the field doing that. But so yeah, I'll give you the short version and then we can dive into some of the details. But
Yeah, please.
Short version is that, mountain climber, mountain guide by trade.
Wait, if I may stop you actually for a quick second. You're actually from Jersey too. And
I am.
I've been having many Jersey people. So I'd actually love to hear how you ended up from Jersey.
Yeah.
Were you a mountain climber in New Jersey high school or something, or?
Yeah. So hang on, let me finish the tee up and then I'll circle back.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Don't fuck the flow. Okay. So, mountain climber by trade. And then like watching my clients and seeing what was motivating them to sign up for big expeditions, sign up to go on these, a lot of my clients started with zero climbing experience and then go on these big mountain adventures. And they're, it's just kind of, tracking and looking and seeing what the common thread was. What was it that was driving them to go and take time away from their families? Why would some guy or a woman from Cleveland, Ohio want to go and climb in Alaska who's never climbed before? It's like what's going on with that? Yeah. And so just kind of pulling out these threads of people that were high performers in one area of their life and yet had felt a disconnect from themselves, from their families, were chasing external goals, but were challenged internally. I would call it, kind of like a spiritual crisis of some sort that they were experiencing. And so through a couple of events, but one of them being a personal climbing accident, I took some time off from climbing and working in the field and got a master's degree in behavioral science. And the thought with that was how to connect the two worlds together, how to connect the personal, professional, psychological development with outdoor adventure. How to take the lessons learned from adventuring and then applying them to another part of our lives. And ultimately the idea was like, how can I be in better service to my clients? How can I help really hold these experiences so they aren't just a one-off adventure experience, but then actually apply the learning in a more direct way.
Yeah.
And so that's the work I do now. So it's hard to categorize because and sometimes I am actually in the field adventuring, taking people climbing, taking people on expeditions, whether it's a 2-day rock climbing event or a 2-week expedition, whatever it is. And then sometimes it's something that's more it takes place in the boardroom, essentially, literally. Like it's a workshop experience or a keynote or a team building event, something like that. That's where we aren't actually, in the mountains, but we're still utilizing the lessons learned. So it kind of is hard to categorize that way, but yeah, so I've got clients that I work with individually in the mountains, and then some clients that we actually never go in the hills, but are still reframing this idea of adventure in terms of a larger scale and not just something in the mountains, not something for just for National Geographic or Red Bull or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. That's really cool. I've been familiar with the coaching world for quite a bit. I've done some coaching myself, but I've never seen anyone like yourself mix the both. And one of the things that really stood out that I was super excited to talk to you about is also how you quantify things.
Mm.
Like this, in 6 months, I will get you this, and you will be
Mhm.
able to do X, Y, Z. I've seen people try to do it, but I've never actually seen them do it as well as you do it.
Yeah, I mean I think I take I think the coaching world. I'm just gonna I'll just go straight
Yeah.
into this. I think the coaching world loses a lot of credibility and traction by holding and staying in too much feminine energy,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and that there needs to be a balance between the masculine and the feminine,
Okay.
between the reflection piece and the emotional component and the heart-centered aspect of it, and then the actual application and doing. And so I think one of the challenges is that you can dive into coaching, or like you can dive into like a consulting role where it's just like it's all doing, it's all it's all strategic, and you're just kind of all systems go. And then there can be the inverse, which would be like a really heart-centered coaching experience
Yeah.
that has a lot of depth work to it that isn't as quantifiable. And
Yep.
so the challenge that I see for myself professionally and for my clients is holding both those at the same time.
I love that.
And
A blended
so
approach.
yeah, and so the adventure component, whether it's actual literal adventure or from the metaphorical perspective, is thrusting people into that, and that's why it becomes like, yeah, we're going to reach these very specific goals in a
Mhm.
quantifiable way, because we're not, navel gazing is great for a short period of time, but
Mhm.
we got to function in the world as well. So we got to, and we want to make things happen. And the idea, we're still in the Western world, which is driven
Sure.
by doing and excellence. And so holding both of those at the same time. Yeah.
So I think, all right. So obviously, both really work, whether you're out in an adventure or you're in the boardroom, right? But
Right.
from my perspective, I would think the best solution, again, even though both of them, let's say we're like both of them are in the Olympics, right? The number one would actually be out in the world. And I think from my perspective, the way I see it is that it will neutralize, or actually, not neutralize, but put everyone on the same page. You might be so powerful in the boardroom, so powerful in a meeting, but put your butt up on a mountain.
Oh,
You're just like human, like anyone else.
totally. And then, I mean, the learning is so fast in that environment because it's like,
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing's
it's
going to
all,
save you.
no. And so I think it's a beautiful mirror to hold up to say, to be like, well, the things that are happening right now in this difficult situation, in this tense, anxiety provoking situation in the hills, is the exact same. You're getting the exact same feedback that you would get in doing a deal, in working with your clients, in working with your employees, whatever it is. Like you're holding a very accurate mirror. But what's beautiful about the adventure component is that then you can work on it right then in the moment. And it's like, all right, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And then when you come back, it's like, oh, remember when we were in this environment? This is the exact same thing. This is the same parallel as what's happening in your business. This is the same thing parallel that's happening in your relationship with your spouse, with your children. So how did you shift and show up there? Okay, so let's adjust that to this environment now. And because the learning was so visceral and so alive, it's immediate. So you're taking it from the cognitive, taking it from from a headspace, and which makes sense when you're reading about it or learning about it, and then you're actually embodying it, and it's incredibly powerful.
No, and I could imagine, and it stays in your mind more than anything that could really ever happen in the boardroom. Right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like you're not going to forget that, right? I've
No.
forgotten hundreds, thousands of meetings I've ever had, right? Like I'm never going to forget
Right.
that experience when I'm climbing up a mountain in the freezing cold.
Yeah. And then so like, you got perseverance, you have challenge, you have vision, you have the experience of negative self-talk, and how do you work through
Oh,
that?
interesting. Yeah. Like the
Um,
little voice in your brain telling you you're no good. You can't
right.
do
You can't
this.
do this. I get a lot of projection, people
Okay.
projecting onto me.
Yeah, I could imagine. Interesting.
Different traits that some are accurate, some are not accurate. Um, Competition, how am I going to show up in this environment and be a beginner when I'm an expert in the
Yeah,
world?
yeah.
So it's like, you just got all this little fruit that comes up. And I think, a lot of people will be like, how did you frame this? How did you figure out exactly what we were going to do? And it's like, I didn't. I just
It just
created an environment, and you showed up and did the work. So, people bring the learning that they need to have into that environment.
amazing. And how long is a typical excursion?
Yeah, I don't like to do anything shorter than 2 days,
Yeah, makes sense.
because I want to increase that vulnerability and have that emotional connection with my clients. So,
Hmm.
so 2 days, 2 to 4 days is probably the typical average. And then we'll extend it out for longer trips. The two longer trips I do are Kilimanjaro expeditions and trips to Nepal as well. So
Wow.
those two trips are a little bit longer, and most clients need to have done something with me prior to going on those expeditions.
Yeah,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, and so
And
we'll
that
do
could be in the
something.
boardroom or something shorter.
It could be, yeah, something
Yeah,
shorter, or it could be like this January. I'll be in Joshua Tree for 10 days doing
that's
little
going to be awesome.
2 day programs with individuals, so they could come and do that, and then be prepped for something else. But it's fluid that way. Yeah.
Do are they not allowed to bring their phones, computers, any of that kind of stuff?
Well, the beauty of it is that oftentimes these environments don't have any
Oh
cell
yeah, true.
coverage anyway.
That's true,
So,
right?
like, so
Wait,
you're being forced to detox.
yeah.
I will, I'll bring a satellite phone for emergency contact, or if there's a need or a necessity. But I've had folks who have been like, "Hey, I've got this deal that I'm working on. Can I use the sat phone for this?" Leading up to, I'm like, "Nope. If
Yeah,
it's
no,
not the
that's not
right
a,
time,
yeah,
it's not the right time. No, we're not. We're
exactly.
not actually. We're The purpose is to fully unplug, and there's definitely some itchiness and some twitching that goes on,
Oh yeah.
but people are saturated, and then they're so emotionally and physically involved that they do a great job in disconnecting.
Yeah, and I think what you saying the 2 days, I think it's really good because like within a day, you're itching for your phone, right? Like
Oh,
within,
within an hour, people
yeah,
are.
yeah, yeah, you're really like, please,
Yeah,
please,
right.
please,
Yeah,
right?
feed me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I think within 2, 3 days, that's when you're probably like now disconnected from the world. I think I've read somewhere like if you go on vacation, and it's Americans don't do this, but you really should go for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
The first week is not really a vacation because by the time you get your brain on vacation mode and you're really like focused on like now I'm going to enjoy my time here, not worry about that big deal, worry about that meeting, worry about that project, you're already halfway through your vacation. And
yeah.
then 2 days before you leave to go back to work, you're like, oh, should I check my schedule? Should I check my email? So like you really need 2 full weeks.
Chunk of time. Yeah. So I just wrapped up a Kilimanjaro expedition. It was 14 days, car to car, and coming back into town after being on the mountain. We had a couple days where we went on safari and a couple just down days before we flew
Mhm.
back. And my clients, there was 8 clients, and I think in total, all of them held this anxiety of, when am I going to turn my phone back on? I don't want to turn it on.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, it was like, I
Interesting. I
am
can see that.
so in bliss being present here and being in this community of people, being a team member, that I actually don't want to be bumped out of this space.
Yeah, I see that.
And yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool to watch these guys just like wait as long as they could just to be present with each other. It was beautiful.
So actually, that brings up a really interesting thought. So you have people hire you because they want to get better at work. They want to get better at relationships. Let's
Yep.
say they want to get that deal signed or anything like that. Have you ever had anyone at the end be like, actually, I don't care about my business anymore, or I care about it, but that's not really
Yeah.
like that big deal that I was worried about, that I wanted to, like, Matt, give me my phone. Now,
Right.
like, so
So
now,
yeah, that actually happens quite a bit where people have this significant transformation like that. I try not to talk about it too much.
no, of course,
Because
but it's a good thing, though. I
no,
don't
I'm
think
going to talk about it right now.
Oh,
But
okay.
I try not to talk about it too much prior to the events because it kind of freaks people out a little bit.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I would say I am consistently surprised, which I don't know if those two words should go together, being consistently surprised.
No, I like it.
It's a bit of a paradox, but at the huge changes people make in their lives as a result of these experiences, whether it's resigning from a job because they realize, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but a lot of the work that I do is around people aligning their values and their actions together, and just taking that time to reflect and see, how do they move through the world, and is it in alignment with their personal values? And and so people will come back and they'll quit their jobs, they'll sell their companies, they'll maintain a stakeholder as a stakeholder in the company, but they'll pull back in terms of their management or operations. They will clear their schedule to spend significant time with their families in different ways. Like, they have these epiphanies of, wow, I have not shown up in the world in a way that I want to, and I'm going to do something dramatic about it. And sometimes I'm like, okay, slow down. Like, let's figure this thing out. And sometimes it's like, yeah, this is exactly what you need to do right now.
Yeah. Wow. Like, I'm going to quit, Matt. I'm going to be your partner.
I've gotten a lot of people that have brought that up. Like, how can we build on this in that way? But it's, I think the heartwarming piece is if I kind of connect the dots, like, what's the underlying desire that people have when they take those actions? It's, there's a sadness that they haven't shown up, in a way that is more heart-centered. And this is for men and women.
Yeah.
And there's a deep desire to reconcile that immediately. And that's super cool.
That is ridiculously cool. Let me put an idea out there.
Yeah.
Do you think it has to do that in many ways the boardroom work business is actually safer than the real world? There are rules, right? There are rules to follow, essentially, right? Or if I'm the boss, especially, I create my own rules. I'm creating my own world, creating my own environment. Like I said even earlier, when you go out on the mountain, you're just a person.
Right.
No one has to be quiet when you're talking. No one has to, show you respect. You don't have respect for one another.
Yeah.
But you're the boss, some dynamics, etc.
Right.
But there are rules, right? I have to show up on time. This is happening. In the world, I don't know what's going to happen when I step outside.
What's interesting about that is that the perception versus the reality. So the perception is that environment doesn't have rules, or that environment has a high level of uncertainty or unknown. But I think the reality of it is it's just a different environment.
I see.
That where majority of people don't engage in that environment, so they don't understand what some of the expectations and rules actually are. That what appears to be kind of a chaotic world is actually not that chaotic. It's just the more time you spend in it, the more you're able to see and understand and recognize the patterns. And the more you're able to, like, read the environment and understand, okay, well, this area is an area that has danger associated with it, rockfall, icefall, whatever it is. This area is not. So you're reading the terrain. So I would actually say that it's not any different at all than our, than a business environment. It's just that it's unknown in terms of how to engage with it. And
Sure.
so what that does is it puts people in a place of higher anxiety, because then they don't understand what the norms are.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the projection comes because as a professional, like I do understand what the norms in that environment are. And so I'm relaxed in that space. And so there's this odd thing of like, how can you be relaxed here when I'm totally freaking out? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so by the time people wrap up and finish trips, they're starting to get attuned to that, and they're starting to relax into a new environment as well.
Makes
And,
sense.
and so I think that's the that's where the learning takes place, is like that. Even though people are in a new environment and they're in a new space, that their way of being in that environment doesn't have to be dramatically different than how they show up in the other parts of their lives.
Interesting. The reason I brought that up earlier too is because I was doing some research a couple of years ago on like people doing ayahuasca.
Okay. Yeah.
In
Bring it.
in South America, and
Mm-hmm.
they were in many ways similar. And feel free to say, Leo, you're completely off base here, but like now you're confronting life. Like ayahuasca makes you confront things that have happened in your life or who
Right.
you really want to be and all that kind of good stuff. And people come back, and I heard there was this whole new industry of coaches and psychologists and psychiatrists and therapists that focus on people that were CEOs, that were head of boards and all that kind of good stuff, that now are like, I don't know what I want to do with my life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're sold a bill of goods, right?
Yeah.
You're
Oh
sold
yeah.
a bill of goods early, and then and then you dive into it with this feeling that it's going to be fulfilling and supportive in some way, and it doesn't meet your needs, and so then it's super disarming. And I mean, what better way than to do ayahuasca? I mean, that's kind of like,
No, that's true.
I saw a meme yesterday for Thanksgiving that was it was something like somebody handing out like a plate full of food, and on the meme it said, and I've dosed this with 100 micrograms of LSD or whatever. Now we're going to see who really has their shit together, or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, it's gonna, these types of experiences, whether it's through a medicine,
Sure,
or whether it's through some sort of experiential adventure, it's going to open that up for you, and it's going to open it up in a way that's going to be either terrifying or really enlightening and exciting.
No, and when you're in a mountain, I mean, you have the adrenaline rush, right? So it's a heightened experience of self,
right?
One way or another, right? And I think what makes it different, I'm not saying necessarily better or worse, but at least in your experience and what you do, is there's actually life or death, right? Like, if I don't really pay attention to how this rope is, and I mean, maybe you could elaborate on that. Like, how much danger can I actually? Maybe I want to say, like, Matt, let's go crazy. Like, I just want to like really climb, like free climb. I don't know. And I'm not a mountain climber, so forgive me.
So again, I'm going to say it's perception of risk versus actual risk.
Okay.
So the perception of risk, I'm never going to take clients into a terrain that's going to be, I don't want to get hurt.
It's not good for business either.
Yeah, I don't want to get, I mean, I've got family and there's lots of things that are more important to me than climbing.
Sure.
So, I don't want to expose myself to higher levels of risk or danger, but it's perception of risk versus actual risk. So I think the challenge is in holding a space and creating a space where there is enough real challenge that your body actually responds to that challenge. And so one of the ropes courses were super popular for a while, the 70s and 80s. And
I don't know, actually, what is that? I don't know.
So there was the ropes courses are basically like these giant like telephone poles,
okay,
with like cables and different ways that they're attached to each other, that you like do different movements.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
That's becoming big now too, I think.
I think it's got a resurgence to it.
Yeah.
But so here's the challenge with that stuff is that it has no legs to it. It's like has no sustained learning to it. It's more of an amusement challenge.
Yeah.
And you're like on the outskirts of a city or something, you're in the
Yep.
woods or wherever, and it's like you kind of, even though it's hard and difficult and challenges you physically, may challenge you emotionally to like step into fear or something. It's held in a way where that it's more like an amusement park experience.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and so
You pay a ticket, you stand in line.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like a zip line or whatever. It's like,
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Yeah,
fun. It's like I have to step off the platform, so there's that
Yeah.
challenge. But it doesn't have any legs to it because you're not really invested in the experience and the outcome. You're more of a passive participant in it.
Sure.
And so it doesn't have the sustained learning to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the perception, so the challenge for me as a practitioner is to create experiences that are as safe as reasonably possible, which is actually very safe.
Yeah.
You might get scratched, or you might get a cut on your arm,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not, we're not talking about like, we're not putting ourselves in environments where there's like
Glacier's going to fall on you or something.
Yeah, but you may have the perception that it's going to,
Mm-hmm.
but the actuality is something totally different. So it's holding both of those things so that you have an adrenal response that feels really significant, even though the danger is actually physically lower. And one thing I tell clients all the time is, especially like we're camped on a glacier, where the conditions feel dramatic, feel challenging, and they feel like they're at risk. And it's like, really, your drive here on the interstate was way more dangerous.
Oh yeah, like,
way
people
more
don't realize that.
Yeah,
It's people are like, no, I'm in my lane. I'm like, there's absolutely nothing stopping that other person from falling asleep, actually even just being crazy and wanting to swerve into the lane. We have these imaginary lines separating.
right. Yeah.
We've all agreed, like we have a social contract that we say we do not pass these lines.
Right, except that not everyone's playing by that social contract.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a funny thing because I actually also there's another social contract that we engage with that cracks me up all the time. Where is the mailbox.
Uh-huh.
We have the social contract that we will put information in this box, and we will receive information in this box.
Yeah. Never thought
it's exposed to the world.
Yeah.
And our contract is that we don't touch each other's boxes.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that.
But it's like, I mean, think about there's a lot of stuff in your mailbox.
Oh yeah, everything. I mean, pretty much anything and everything you want.
Right.
Sign up for a credit card, get a house.
Whatever.
Like
right. Yeah, it's I'll just go back to kind of close the chapter on that. Is like perceived risk versus actual risk.
Yeah.
The actual risk is low. The perceived risk is high. As a practitioner in that environment, I have a acute awareness of that.
Yeah, you know what's happening.
Right, but my guests don't.
Yeah.
And so their level of learning in that environment is really high because of it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Is there any kind of prep beforehand? Like I've been fortunate enough to go hiking, not rock climbing or anything, in near Bogota, Colombia. Mm-hmm. And like I showed up with like the worst sneakers in the world. I haven't worked out in like weeks, and I was in pain, man. Like
so, yeah. I mean, for the bigger mountain climbs, there's no other experience, no better training than actually just doing it.
Okay,
but yeah, people that live in an urban environment, if they don't have an opportunity to hike a lot or get out in the hills. A lot of the classes that people do now, whether it's like Orange Theory or CrossFit or spinning classes, those kind of things, doing those a couple days a week and then getting out on the weekends for a longer bike ride or run or hike or whatever, that, people are set up for that. It works well. It's not, and then the learning is when you're in the hills, like when you're out there doing it. And, it's people get sore.
Oh no, and you should, right? I mean, that's that's part of the experience, and you feel it. Now, I love the way you were also talking about like the impact that it makes in the long term, because I've heard the same thing about people doing like ayahuasca and stuff. You may come back in 6 months afterwards, you're all ready to go. And just as any other human experience, you start forgetting about it,
Yeah.
Like, do you
Yeah.
see that happening too? And like maybe someone needs like a,
Right. I mean, that's so when I'm working with my clients, so most of my coaching clients, the way that it works is we do like a 6-month gig together, and
Mhm.
in the middle of that gig, we do an adventure experience in there. So it gives them more time afterwards to start to transition that learning.
Mhm.
Without the support on the back end.
Yeah, just forget. Yeah, you just
Yeah.
forget. Like you go back
And,
to your regular day to day.
yeah, exactly. And, like one thing I did on this last trip that I'll do frequently, but on this Kilimanjaro one that we did, on the final day, I had people write letters to themselves.
Oh,
And
nice.
then I have those letters, and then I'll send those letters to each of those individuals 3 months from the end date. So it's a little bit of their own kick in the ass as well. It's like not me doing it, but it's, them reflecting back on their experience. And
I love that.
when they get those letters, there'll be some sadness attached to it, because they'll realize, wow, I'm not holding the space that I wanted to at the end of that
Yeah.
trip. And here's an opportunity to step more fully into it. So do people like just skyrocket after and just apply all that learning? And is it, no, you go back to habits, you go back to routines, but oftentimes, just like any like real big transformational experience, once the toothpaste is out of the tube, you can't put it back in.
Yeah.
And so there's that.
Yeah.
So there's that component that is just going to be part of it as well. Yeah, you'll slide back and slip back into some other stuff, but it won't be too much. It won't be completely lost.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, because just like any other human experience, sometimes you forget. I like that idea to have the letter, and especially if they wrote it.
And and most of, I mean, the other piece I'll just add on to that is most of the guests, they know that this has been a hugely transformational experience, and they want more.
Interesting.
So they'll come back for more. Yeah.
That's do you ever
Are you going to be you're traveling, right? You're kind of in transit, moving around.
Yeah, I'm traveling right now. I'm a bit of a digital nomad, but I've not gone and done any kind of like adventure traveling or anything. The last thing I did was I went to Bogota.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was amazing.
We should hook up and take you climbing.
I'd love to. The only time I've ever really been climbing was in Manhattan on those little pegs.
On the pier?
Yeah,
okay.
No, I don't even know. No,
like Chelsea Piers or something?
It wasn't in Chelsea Piers. It was somewhere else in like Times Square.
But okay. Yeah.
And let me tell you, I was humbled. I work out. I've done CrossFit. I do push-ups and pull-ups like right before this call even. Like I'm active. I'm like, I could do this. I got my butt kicked.
Yeah. Well, and I can understand immediately why, which is you probably attacked the thing.
You got it.
Like you attack all your projects and all your work. I mean, and whereas it's climbing is this metaphor of being, you got to be centered, you got to breathe.
Yeah.
You got to have the musculature, but you got to have technique. And so it's, balancing all those things at the same time. And I'd be psyched to take you out for a day or two and figure out a way to make that happen. I think your mind would be blown.
I would absolutely love to do that. That'd be amazing. Like the only time I ever really disconnected was not an adventure where I was in any kind of danger or any kind of experience like that. I was just in Thailand, and I was in Thailand and I didn't bring my phone. I didn't bring my laptop. And I did feel that experience of like having anxiety to get my phone back.
You didn't take your phone on your whole trip?
Nope. Yeah, my friend had a phone. So we had one as just in case.
Okay.
But besides that, no, didn't do anything. Didn't check it. I actually deleted, when I got back, I deleted my Facebook. I deleted I had my business stuff that I still did, but like from a personal perspective, I got rid of it. Like the Leo Instagram, the Leo Facebook, just deleted the apps. I didn't delete the accounts, but I deleted the apps.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, it was one of the best experiences. And I still try Like yesterday, I was like, I'm not going to get on my phone.
Yeah. When was this trip?
2 years ago now.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a good example for you in terms of like what kind of, if it had legs or not. So,
Yeah. No, I'm a
yeah.
believer. I'm not even a believer. I know it. I felt it.
I'm impressed by by you guys. I mean, just trying to think about doing international travel right now
Mm-hmm.
without a phone. Just in terms of all the typical way that we, gather information, having your boarding pass
Yep.
on your phone, hotel reservations, directions. Like, what was that like?
It was awesome. And I kind of did that. I'll answer your question, but I did it on purpose. So I have not, it took me a long time in my life to go to Latin America. I know Spanish. I didn't want to go to Latin America because I knew Spanish. That's actually why I didn't want to go. I always wanted to go to places where I didn't know anything. And I felt like not knowing anything, not having my phone, and especially in Thailand, I got to experience people better. Like ask and really have a conversation with someone. How do I get here? How do I get there? Instead of just having my head down, or something that I do, and people from the Northeast and New York do all the time, and I still do here, I have my headphones on all the time. If I go to the
All the
supermarket
time.
now, I have my headphones on.
Really?
Yeah. And
What are you listening to?
I'm listening to a podcast or I'm listening to music, but I'm like, I actually tried. I'm like, I'm not experiencing the world. Like the sounds,
Yeah.
right? Like of what's happening in a new place. Like
Well, you have no opportunity to just like have a random engagement with someone.
Exactly. And not having the phone, not having Google Maps, all that kind of good stuff forces that. So if you're sitting down in an Uber, and we used Uber in Thailand with the other phone, right? Like just get the Uber sometimes and then have a conversation, like put the phone away and have a conversation even with each other.
Right.
With my friend, Steve, or with the taxi driver, the Uber driver, or whatever. And then force those conversations.
And then did you carry a phone with you?
Yeah, we had one.
I'm sorry, a camera?
A camera, yes. I had a camera.
Like an actual camera, not
I actually have.
Yeah.
I don't have it. I don't know where it is, but I actually have like people make fun of me. They call me like the dad because I actually have like a Canon that I shoot on.
Nice.
Yeah. And I have my GoPro too.
I mean, it kind of makes me want to do more travel that way. Like
you should have a phone, like I said, as an emergency.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking about like two people together. You've got one phone, but there's almost like a social contract between you that if there's only one phone, it's kind of like fuck you if the other person's on the phone, right? Oh, yeah. You're like, hey, I'm here too, and it's I like it. I like it.
No, that's true. If you want to get even more dangerous, don't bring an external battery.
Totally. Yeah.
Right. When that phone dies,
you're dead. Yep, it's dead. I like to actually, when I travel, when I'm on planes, I like to be able to see what kind of random interactions and conversations I can have. And it's been interesting just to realize like who's up for that and who's not.
Yeah. I've had good experiences. I have friends that follow me on Twitter, Instagram, all that kind of good stuff that I met on a plane.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Just like random people that I still follow. I remember I had a tour guide in Colombia too. This is different, obviously, but a tour guide in Colombia that like follows me on Twitter and on Instagram and messages me and like, oh, you started a podcast? That's awesome.
Oh,
like,
right on. Yeah.
I try the best thing I ever did was travel. I was fortunate enough just to see how other people live. And in many ways, I am very grateful because it also made me appreciate my life a lot more. Not because I saw anything negative somewhere else, but I just realized how much I really do like New Jersey. Or like, oh, really? I'm a big Jersey fan. I love being from New Jersey. That's why I asked you even earlier, like, how did you like being from Jersey? Because I'm from I had to write something about my life, and I'm like, I come from a place where saying "use guys" is proper English.
Fair enough. Yeah. New Jersey. I got a love-hate with Jersey.
And I understand that too.
Yeah. I don't know what to make of that place. So much of it is like deeply in my bones.
Yep.
and at the same time, I actively rebelled against New Jersey.
Yeah, I can
I mean, I
understand.
was like, I'm out of here. I
Yeah.
left and been back a handful of times, for a funeral and then for some work. Um, but but then the last time I was there, I really um, softened to it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it also depends where you're from in New Jersey, because people don't realize New Jersey is basically 3 different places: North, Central, and South.
Oh, I thought it was just North Jersey and then Philly.
Well, that is true, but recently they've been introducing Central.
Central
New
Jersey.
Brunswick, Princeton, North Brunswick,
Gotcha. Okay.
Edison maybe kind of area.
Okay.
But it's a good place. You got everything. If you want to go surfing, you could go surfing. If you want to go hike, you want to go to the mountains, you could go to the mountains. You want to go to Philly, you go to Philly.
Yeah.
Then you go to New York, you go to New York. I know.
Yeah, yeah.
You're in Washington, right? I know. You're gonna he's gonna destroy me right now. Go.
No, I mean, I think that's a great fantasy you have about the power and beauty of New Jersey. But it is. It's the grittiness of Jersey that I actually really appreciate. Like Taylor ham, egg, and cheese at the train station.
You got it.
I think there's a funny thing about Jersey where it's like there's a facade of like a fuck you facade.
Yeah, 100%.
But that's barely there. I mean, it takes nothing to peel that back and then to be able to connect with another person. So, whereas on the West Coast, I think there's more of like it's easier to connect with someone, but it's harder to actually then go deeper into relationship with someone. So there's like surface level warmth.
Yeah.
That you don't get on the East Coast. But then on the East Coast, it's like I feel like people would open themselves up and help you out if you need it in a way
100%.
that I don't feel that over here as much.
Agreed. It makes me upset when people are rude or won't help you in New York and stuff. I've been in situations. Remember when I went from Jersey, but I worked most of my life in New York City. I was lost, needed help or something. Like it was always, and I've helped people. Like people are there to help you and support you. But do you think that's helped you actually seeing that grittiness and all that kind of good stuff? So when you've moved and now doing what you're doing, like definitely being from Jersey helps.
Well, it helps me in a couple ways. I mean, it helps me to be able to better understand and connect with my clients because I get to, I can understand where some of that flavor comes from.
Sure. Yeah.
So there's a piece of that, and you'd be surprised the number of professional climbers that are from Jersey.
Interesting.
Right, and I think I think it comes from a tenacity and grittiness that the environment demands. So it is surprising, and it's definitely not from it's a personality trait that's developed from being there, not from an environmental aspect of like the weather or the terrain. Right. But there's a tenacity and like there's an East Coast thing. I was like, well, if you don't get it done, then no one's gonna. You got to do it yourself. Like
yeah.
And you got to figure it out.
Yep.
And kind of get out of the way if you're not going to. Like, so I think that type of experience is super helpful in being able to connect with my clients, and then also in terms of climbing.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, you'd be surprised the number. Like you meet people and be like, "Oh yeah, you're from Jersey too."
Yeah, no, I've had quite a few Jersey people.
Pretty random.
Yeah, like I did not mean to have so many Jersey people on the podcast so far, and all of a sudden they're like, "Yeah, I'm from Jersey." I'm like, "What? That's awesome."
Yeah. I pushed away my East Coast background for a long time, and now I'm coming back into it a little bit more. I just decided last week to start to run more programs on the East Coast and just embrace, like, instead of trying to run from it, is like just embrace it. That's part of who I am. Yeah,
well, but also, I mean, they need that, right? I mean, everyone around the world needs what you're offering.
Oh, yeah.
Coaching and experiences like that. So
yeah,
Matt, don't deprive Jersey from it, man. Like, what are you doing?
I know. I'm going to run some programs next year in North Carolina and
Okay.
in upstate New York.
Nice. We're in North Carolina. I know. I used to go to Raleigh a lot. City,
There's a
obviously. But
retreats location on a lake. I'll have to get back to you. We'll put it in the show notes.
yeah, please. Yeah,
I
I
can't
want to.
pull it off
I
the
want
top of my head, but yeah.
let people know. And
Yeah.
especially when you get the New Jersey dates, I got to put it on the show notes too.
Oh my gosh, you'd be shocked how many times people. Yeah. And so what I found is it's just been interesting. People are like, so when are you going to do this program on the East Coast? When are you going to do this in New Jersey? Let me know. And in my head, I'm like, yeah. But I'm like, no, I'm actually never doing that. And then I realized I'm like,
Why not?
why not?
I mean,
Why
not
not?
only like
It's there. It's wanted.
Well, you
Yeah.
wrote it's there as wanted. You wrote this on your website too. I mean, like, and this is something I talk a lot about. You could have business with purpose, right? They
Yeah.
could be the same, right? So like people want what you have, and you could offer it to them, and it's going to benefit them, and it's good for business.
Totally. Yeah. Right. So I want to just to bookend the conversation we had earlier. I want you to come out to Southern California in January.
Okay.
End of January, beginning of February. And I want to do 2 days of climbing with you. So I'm going to put it out there.
Yeah.
Get you out, kind of blow your mind a little bit, show you how the whole thing works.
I'd absolutely love to do it. So before I go, what's the best story of someone climbing that never, like maybe someone similar to me that you've experienced, so I could kind of get an idea, and the listeners could get an idea too. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, I would say everyone's kind of like you.
Yeah.
I mean, my pause is just like, which transformational story to pull from.
Sure, yeah, but you have a lot.
I think a lot
of favorite.
I don't have a favorite. Well, I do have one favorite. But what I was going to say is, oftentimes people that sign up for these adventures, whether it's a rock climbing thing or a mountain adventure up here in Washington, the Cascades, they already kind of know what they're stepping into in terms of what's the transformation they want. And then the experience is just this major conduit. So I think about a client who was on the cusp of a significant relationship shift in her life. And she knew that going into it.
Mm-hmm.
In her heart, but then like in her head had been like kind of like pushing it away. And then just a couple hours into the experience, there was just this moment of clarity of like, of course, this is the challenge. This is what I need to step into. Incredibly painful, difficult, and at the same time liberating.
Yeah.
And so I think my point in bringing that up is that most clients already have an inclination as to where they're headed, and the experience just highlights it.
Yeah, you're the catalyst to get them.
The catalyst for it. Yeah. So I had this. You asked for like I had a client. We did a rock climbing thing on day one. This was a board meeting. Well, it was like not a board meeting, a executive leadership team meeting. So there's about 10 folks in the room. We did a outdoor adventure experience on day one, and then day two we did a kind of an in-house session to debrief and to kind of do some strategy on that. Do the day one thing. It's contained and held in a container that is challenging, and yet is safe. And the second day we walk in, and within kind of having coffee and fruit and that kind of thing, and sit down to start the session, and this one guy's just like, hey, I've got something I need to unpack that's occurred to me since we saw each other last. I'm like, okay, what's going on? And he just says, I just need to give my formal resignation. And you could hear a pin drop in the room.
Wow. I mean, even
I'm like, great. I'm like, whoa. Okay, this is CFO of the organization, major organization. And I'm like, okay, let's, everyone needs to know a little bit more information than just
Yeah. Like the drop
tendering
this bomb on us right now.
resignation.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, like yesterday's experience being here with you all, and he just kind of unpacks the whole thing, has given me clarity that my values and actions have not been in alignment. And this is the utmost priority for me. And
Wow.
this is the environment that, we should make this transition in. And it was liberating for the room because everyone in the room already knew that that's what was taking place.
Wow.
That he, not that he was going to be resigning, but
Okay.
that he, his values and actions weren't in alignment, and things weren't flowing in a way within the organization as
Sure.
he wanted or as the team wanted. And so it made sense to then have a transition for him, as opposed to trying to just power through it and make it happen. And so
I want that.
it was a terrifying moment for me because I'm like, oh, you guys hired me as a
Yeah.
facilitator to come in, and now I have just facilitated the
An exit.
resignation of your
Yeah.
CFO. But what it
man.
actually turned out to, yeah, exactly, great investment.
Yeah.
What it actually turned out to be was like a gift for everyone, and
It is.
and so that was, I just think about, you asked like what are some highlight transformations? Those two are on either end of the spectrum, but they both highlight that both people wanted to be wanted to show up fully.
Yeah. And I love that you said that it was beneficial for both people. I think I've seen, and I have friends that have seen, and just being out in the world as I consult and so on and so on, people don't want to lose people, even though they realize they shouldn't be in that position. Not maybe they're fantastic at their job, but their heart isn't into it.
Right.
That person's just going to become resentful. That person's going to end up quitting. Like,
Oh, totally.
like your relationship with that person, like maybe you could have hired them 6-7 months from now. Like now you're
Right.
going to want to keep this person and say like, no, Matt, you made them made them quit. Like, this is not good. Matt, you stink. Like,
Right.
it's good for everyone.
No, it's a great gift. Yeah. And it's, the blessing is like on both. I mean, it's like the end of any relationship.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I'm kind of giving you back to the world. Like,
Sure.
I'm resigning, and then I'm opening you up to a whole nother possibility to engage with someone who should show up more fully.
Yeah. It's a whole new adventure.
And then I get set free as well. So, yeah. So I mean, I guess so it's rare to not have a client go through a transformational experience like that.
No, it makes sense. Just thinking again about Jersey and like the adventures, I think, and I said I had kind of like a little bit of a spiritual awakening, or kind of like awakening just being in Thailand. I think something an ex-girlfriend of mine said, like she couldn't be in New York because she's like, there's a lot of energies, right? And I don't mean that necessarily from a spiritual energy per se, like just like energies. You have to deal with a lot of people. And I think that's why people think that New Yorkers are rude. It's just that we don't have enough time to like talk to every single person on the street or deal with every single person on the street. But then that's also a negative. And I read an article, actually, I forgot where it was, but it was like the noise pollution drives people to have anxiety and depression. And like, it could be as little as like 5 o'clock in the morning, hearing that a garbage truck back up, or having someone fight. That little bit could disrupt your sleep, give you negative energy, all that kind of good stuff. So just unplugging from the big cities, everyone needs to do.
Huge. Yeah. I mean, I don't, we're not even aware of like how much defense mechanism we put up just to be able to hold our shit together.
Yeah.
I kind of was surprised about walking in the grocery store with headphones on, but
I did it yesterday.
It makes sense. Yeah, but it makes sense when you feel like you just need to like put this protective layer around yourself in order to move through the world.
Yes.
Because if you have your energy bleed out everywhere. Whew,
yeah,
it's intense.
I've read something about that, like with relationships being hurt because there's no decompression time in cities, especially New York City. You leave let's say you had a bad day at your job, you go into the subway, you're next to people, someone might step on you, it's going to be late or whatever. Then you get home and then you might have arguments with your partner.
Right.
Where other people in the world have decompression time in their car.
Yeah. So there's I mean, I've actually prescribed this to my clients frequently is setting up some sort of transitionary experience from one role to another role.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think in our parents' generation and our grandparents' generation, the bar was that space.
Yeah.
So you finish work, you go to the bar, and then you go home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a positive thing overall. I mean,
Sure.
but it
We had
played
an
that.
environment.
It played a role in
Yeah.
transition. And but when you're transitioning from work to home, and that transitionary zone is just as anxiety and stressful,
Yeah.
you're not transitioning. You're
No,
just
there's no.
continuing being, being all lit up the whole time.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a great two things that I prescribe frequently to my clients is create a transitionary experience, and then and also create a transitionary experience where you change clothes. So you're literally like
All right.
disarming and
Yeah.
then rearming in something that's going to be more,
I like that.
it's going to change that role for you. So like, if you do come home in your suit, take the suit off, and not
Yeah.
just take
I
the
never
tie
thought
off,
of
but
that.
like literally take the suit off and put on a different clothing. If you're if you're a woman in a high powered role, change that
Yeah.
outfit, put on something more fluid, more sensual, more
Sure.
comfortable, and like disarm.
I never
Literally,
thought of that.
like armor. Take the
Yeah.
armor off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or uniform, right? Like
your
put on a
uniform.
different
Yeah,
uniform. Yeah.
because the role that you're in your significant relationship is a different role. So don't show up in your same uniform.
I love that. So I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about what might be the technology that's had one of the biggest impacts on humanity, and it was clothing.
Hmm.
We're talking about clothing.
Yeah.
Clothing allowed us to go up north,
Right.
right? To go fishing where we could never go fishing before.
Right.
To, like that, without clothing, we
Yeah.
wouldn't have expanded as humans.
Yeah. Without armor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Insulation.
yeah, that's amazing. So that makes perfect sense when you say that. Like, get home and change the environment, change yourself. Like, you
Yeah.
feel differently. Like, especially in a suit or something where you might be a little tight. Put your Lululemons on or whatever, and
Right. Just
that's
disarm.
yeah,
And so it's maybe it's something as simple as when you get off the subway, you walk 5 minutes further. You
yeah,
walk a different route home.
yeah,
You
yeah.
you take the long block home to just be present to the transition.
That makes sense. I
Whatever
like
it
that
is.
a lot.
Yeah.
I think that's very powerful for people. The other thing that you mentioned that made me think about, and maybe this is very millennial of me, 34, so I'm like at the top. I can
Okay.
still call myself a millennial. Uh,
Yeah.
I think we have it harder than a heck of a lot of people in the past, because when in that story that you just told, I come from advertising, right? That's how I started my career. Someone left, they could go to that bar or whatever, they could go
Uh-huh.
work out, and they didn't have this,
Right.
right? They didn't have this attached to them where I could create from this, which is also beautiful. Like, I feel
Sure.
very fortunate about living where the time I live in and what we have around. I feel ridiculously fortunate, but I also realize that it comes with its negatives. Like I'm saying, like this allows me to create, this allows me to track, optimize, do whatever I want to do. But then when I should be decompressing at the bar or at the gym or wherever I am, it doesn't allow me.
Right. I want to, like, sometimes I just want to take a hammer to the damn thing.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Yeah. And as an entrepreneur, it's like, where do you draw the line? Because it's very fluid.
Oh
You're
yeah,
you're running your business off your phone, and um, and yet at the same time, you don't. Yeah, I actually bought a lockbox
oh, did
recently.
ya?
Yeah, I
Is it like
did.
on a timer or something?
It's not on a timer. It's just a wooden box with a cable, like the cable runs into it, so I can charge it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a little key, and I also have a record player at home. So these two
awesome.
pieces are tied together. So, what I found is I was driving the music off of my phone all the time. So it's like I always had it there and I could change the music and whatever, which is great. But at the same time, like, I fucking hate the thing. Like, I'm like, this love hate with it. And having vinyl at the house meant that I still had music.
Yeah.
I didn't have to have the phone. And, I got direct feedback from my kids that were like, what are you doing on the phone? What are you doing on the phone? It's like,
yeah, that hurts.
What am I doing on the phone? Yeah, it hurts. It's like, I'm not even aware of how trigger sensitive I am. And so I got the lockbox, and I'm in the habit now of at 5 p.m., phone goes in the lockbox. Phone doesn't come out of the lockbox until after I do bedtime for both kids.
Amazing.
So do I miss a few texts and some? Yeah, it's a big fucking deal.
Exactly. If they need
it, yeah, it's not a big deal. But so I'm in a men's group.
Okay.
And we did this thing the other day where it was actually a couple of weeks ago, where we had to make a video and post to the group something that we didn't want the group to know about us.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So there's a whole variety of different posts that people had. Oh, it was pretty wild, like pretty broad.
Yeah. I was in jail once. Like, I don't know, whatever. Like
it went dark. People went dark and deep. But for me, I wrote a poem.
Oh wow.
About and read it to the group, which was about my relationship with my phone.
Wow.
Like all the beautiful things that have developed and been created out of it.
Yeah.
And then all of the negative, like all of the behaviors and addictions and all kinds of shit that are attached to the phone, and like how what this relationship is like with this device. And
it's bittersweet.
I don't actually, I think it's going to be a really interesting next decade in terms of how our relationship shifts and changes with this device. And I'm a firm believer. It's funny how like the theme for this has been like this digital detox. Like, I'm a firm believer in the digital detox.
Oh yeah, I am.
Your travel story, my clients on Kilimanjaro recently, my own capacity to carry around a camera now more than my phone, and to like, it's like I think we're gonna. I hope we see a sea change.
Yeah, and I've of course it's just me and my experiences, but I'm seeing it a lot even with my friends. And something I wanted to tie it back to everything that you're doing too. Are you seeing a lot younger entrepreneurs, business people, digital nomads, kind of people coming to you, as opposed to in the past might have been like more of like a older CEO, C-suite executive type, and now you're kind of seeing like maybe someone like myself, like an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing more, seeing a younger set of individuals that are kind of at the second stage in their careers, in terms of like, I've made money, I've done this, but yet I want to go deeper. I want to feel a deeper level of connection to my work and a deeper level of connection to my place in the world.
I love that you said it that way, because that was my last episode that is not released yet is with a friend, Darren, who invented something called raindrop cakes. And we met in advertising. He was a digital strategist on Trident and a bunch of other brands. And essentially he wanted something that was manifested in the world, right? Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that I've felt upset about, again, very fortunate, blessed, love everything that I've ever done, but it's all been digital. I can't touch this podcast.
Right.
I can't hand the podcast over to someone, right? So I was longing, and I feel a lot of people in this world, regardless of age, sex, or anything, long for something tangible. And I
Mhm.
think your adventures, that's tangible.
It's tangible. It's
I
real. Yeah.
I went on this adventure. I did this. Look, I got a freaking scar, minor scar, by going on an adventure with Matt. I think
Right.
that's probably what people long for too, because sure, I closed that deal. You can't touch a deal.
Right. Yeah.
You can't
No,
feel a
it's
deal so much. People could argue against me all day long, but
sure, but it's
you get my point.
yeah. And so are you in your community, are you experiencing that people have a desire for
Yes,
real tangible?
yes,
Yeah.
100%. Most of my friends that are really, really successful say, "I just want to open up a coffee shop.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to paint more."
Hmm.
Like I have friends that are fantastic artists that haven't picked up a paintbrush,
Right.
and I consider them they're artists when they create the podcast that they're creating or the digital strategy that they're creating. They're artists like that, but I feel like I could touch that painting. I'm seeing
Mm.
that every single day. And there was an article the other day of like millennials and such, or what they call knowledge workers, people that work
Right.
online on the internet, have quit like $200,000 jobs so they go travel and do adventures like yours.
Right. So they can actually experience the world
Exactly.
with like in a visceral way, not
Exactly.
just, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, because science tells us. Even I tried, and I love this being able to do Zoom with you because who knows, we would have to wait until January when I go rock climbing.
Right.
But people don't realize, and this is based in real science, what it's like to be in a room with someone, right? Micro expressions, whether
Hmm.
it's that or even to get even like smells, right? Like just this energy that exists that doesn't exist through this. There's never, I can't touch Matt, right? Matt,
Right.
in many ways, you're still like a talking head to me. I'm not a real person.
Sure. Right. Right. Right.
And people long for that. And people, we need that. That's how humans evolved, being around a campfire telling stories.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, so, I just did a retreat recently for myself, and it was out in Death Valley, and there was programming of times where we
Hmm.
did activity, we did workshop experiences, but then there was a ton of downtime as well, and it
Hmm.
was in that downtime that some of the richer moments actually occurred, where you're just like organically connecting with someone,
Yeah.
sitting and being in that environment. Um, it's funny. I feel a little bit. I live in the mountains. I live in a small mountain town, but I'm in cities a lot. But
Yeah.
um, but I get this. I have a connection to nature based on this environment I live in. I know where the
Yeah.
moon cycle is. I know the seasons intimately. I'm aware of the weather very intimately, and during the winter, I'm aware of what the snowpack is doing for
Interesting. Yeah.
avalanche conditions. So it's like I'm aware of the temperature, um, and so I take it for granted that everyone has an awareness of the environment that they're living in, but that's not the case at all.
Yeah. I
Um,
know.
and hearing you say that just kind of reiterates that my experience in the world is not. Uh, it just highlights that how insulated we all are in
Sure.
assuming that everyone has the same experience in the world that we
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Different
Which, when I
perspective.
say it out loud, is like absurd. But
No,
uh,
no, but no, it's no. I mean, it's not absurd because it's something like we know, but you don't really know.
yeah, right,
You don't feel. I think I like to talk about. There's something you can know a lot of things and talk
without
about
feeling.
a lot of things, but
Yeah,
you don't feel it. I talk a
right.
lot that about. I speak on marketing a lot. I get invited as a speaker to talk about marketing, and I always talk to people and I tell people I don't want to be just a talking head, and you shouldn't be either. Like you should get your hands dirty, whether it's buying Facebook ads or doing this or doing that, because you could talk about it all day long, and especially people that do like crisis management talks. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
do you know what it feels like to press that button?
Mm,
Like I could talk about theory all day long. If you don't know what it feels like to touch that button, then you don't
yeah.
really know what it's like at all.
And when you say touch the button, you mean to like engage
Yeah,
the. Yeah.
it can touch you. The button. It could be anything. Like it doesn't matter if you're a scientist and you're speaking on science, but you haven't been in the lab in forever. Get back in the lab and like touch that
Right.
button. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Get in it. Get
yeah,
dirty.
exactly. I think that comes from me being from Jersey, like always just getting my hands dirty. Like what has to get done, let's do it.
Right. Right. Yeah. I don't know what to, I don't know whether I should be hopeful or like saddened by your reflection about the desire to experience the world, you
Yeah.
know? And it's like, is that promising, or
Well,
is that like really fucking tragic and sad? I don't know.
no, I know it's not tragic. I don't believe it's tragic at all, because I ultimately, even though I feel that, I could get that easily. It's not unattainable at all. And the benefits outweigh the positives. Like I wouldn't be able to talk to you right now, or wouldn't be able to do this right now. And your business wouldn't be able to touch people around the world because YouTube wouldn't exist.
Right.
Or I'm really big into a lot of these companies that are coming out now that help with cognitive therapy and just mental health support in general. And I think that's really, really positive. I come from a Hispanic family where, mental health is not a real thing, right? Like,
Right. You mean like there's just more machismo around it, and it's
exactly.
Like suck it up and make, yeah.
You got it. But now someone who maybe, I'm a lot different than other people in my family, but maybe there's an uncle or something that I have that wants to get that support and that help, but is afraid. Now he could go online to something like Joyable and get that, or there's people in other countries that don't have any kind of access to any kind of healthcare per se. And perhaps they could get online and talk to a coach like yourself.
Right.
So ultimately, I'm very positive and love where we're going and the things that exist. And heck, I wouldn't have my career or have the blessings and the fortunate and privilege that I have without it. So ultimately, I see the positive.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. So I think the challenge is like, can we parlay the technology into a space that increases connectivity? I mean, not connectivity. When I say connectivity, connection.
Yeah.
With humanity and with the world at large.
And in many ways, AI, a lot of people, and I agree with this, actually will give us that. So artificial intelligence, ultimately, there will be machines doing everything for us, right? But maybe it'll take 100 years, 200 years, whatever it may be, but it'll give people time to create more art, to connect with one another, right? I like to talk about technology. Like I'm known for like marketing Oreo cookies, right? And that's technology. Now, whether it's Wonder Bread or anything like that, that's technology that now allows you and me to have this conversation, because we don't have to worry about going out and baking something or bottled water. We don't have to worry about going out and getting water, which now allows us to create art, to support people, to create more beautiful things. So I only see technology helping us, and things like AI, when you and I no longer have to work, or someone no longer has to drive a truck or whatever it may be, right? That gives us more time to connect, build, become more enlightened, whatever you want to call it. I see it all going in a really, really, really positive direction because of that. It's only going to bring us back.
I'll grab some of that positivity from you then.
But it's hard. I think it's going to get harder though, right?
Yeah.
It's going to get harder before it gets better.
Yeah, it is really, and I was just starting to think about like some of the disruptor, organizations that also increase connectivity, like trying to reframe like Airbnb and Uber and Lyft and those sorts of things. Like, how are those disruptors actually increasing humanity and connectivity? But it's like, well, I'm actually staying at someone's house.
Yeah.
And I'm not just in some random Best Western. Like I'm actually,
you're in personal space.
I'm in a personal space,
sacred,
in a town that I get to experience in a totally different way. And then I can walk to a restaurant versus being like in, just in some random commercial zone.
Yeah. Here, there's the Applebee's down the street and the Fridays, Matt.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you don't have to do that as your only choice.
And I've heard of traveling experiences now too, where they've kind of taken the Airbnb Uber experience and said you could have dinner at someone's house.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So I don't know what the website is or anything like that. I could look it up in the show notes too, but
it was pretty wild. Yeah.
Yeah. So technically you could have it, right? Like, do you go hunting or anything, or?
I don't.
Okay. Because perhaps I know.
friends that do that, but yeah.
Yeah, because maybe you could go hunting out where you are and have a dinner, and someone like myself could come experience, you know,
Right.
a meal that I've never experienced.
Totally different. Yeah. Huh.
So I only see it, again, it might get worse because especially if you look at even like truck drivers, that's one of the first jobs that's really going to get hit with AI, like Tesla and all that with the automated vehicles. And so it's
Right.
going to get bad, but then eventually it's going to get better. And that might be when you and I are past. I don't know.
Right. Who knows? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But we have people like yourself though, because that I think it's fortunate that it allow people to have these experiences. And someone like me can now say, all right, I could go to someone like Matt and have this. Without you,
Right.
it'd only get worse.
True. True. So it's, yeah, I mean, there's the gift in providing those kinds of experiences. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's like any, I was actually waiting earlier when I invited you on the trip, to go out, go climbing. I was like waiting for you to push back a little bit.
Okay.
Because that's the usual response.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, oh,
I'm ready to do anything.
I'm too busy, or I don't know if I have time for that. And it's interesting to note, what do people push back against,
Interesting.
and where's how deep does the pain need to get before someone engages?
And I think truthfully, I've done it myself. I'll only speak for me. I won't speak for anyone else. Sometimes it has to get pretty darn deep.
The pain.
Yeah.
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 Right. The pain has to be pretty damn significant before you engage and make that take that step.
Yeah. What I've come to realize, like I said, I'm 34. I realized this maybe I was 31 or so. I used to live my life sometimes for what I would be able to say at a party, right? So New York, New Jersey, people ask you two things. What do you do for a living and where do you live, right? They're sizing you up.
Okay.
And I pretty much lived my life for that, for like a moment at a party that I could tell someone what I do and where I live.
Right. It's cocktail party fodder. Yeah.
Exactly. But guess who has to get up every single day and go to work?
Right.
Guess who has to?
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Exactly. So I was selling 90% of my life for 10%.
And so you knew that for a while, but then the pain had to reach a point to actually do that.
Yeah, 100%. Because I still dealt, like, even when you said earlier, to take your phrase, like what I was sold, like, who was I? I was very much defined by my job. I was very much defined by the things I did. Like, if I didn't have this high profile job, then who am I?
And what would you rather be defined by?
Actually, I like doing this. I like engaging, talking to people. That's actually why I went into social media to begin with, because it was, I just saw it as a way for me to engage with people. And I want to be able to have that, maybe that's a wrong phrase, but work-life balance. But I just want it to be one. Right?
Yeah.
And it was one at one point. It really was. When I started my career, it was. But then it changed. And now I just want to be able to support people, help people. And this is why I created this, so I could tell stories like yours and impact people, not only to go on an adventure with you perhaps, but also maybe a coach that's out there in the world that wants to do it too. And now could see you and say, wow, this is a guy from New Jersey doing this kind of stuff, right? Like,
right. Yeah. I mean, so I was just trying to parse it down a little bit. So
it's like a coaching session.
It is so what I'm hearing is that your desire in that is to be in relationship.
Yes. And and like I was saying,
like
that's why
you really just like pin it down to what it is. It's
I love people. Yeah. I love people. I love engaging with people. I love learning about people. And when I saw MySpace, and I started back in the MySpace days, like, I was like, this is amazing. Like, this is what people do in the world, but now we're just doing it with technology.
Right.
Like, this is amazing. And that's the only thing. And I became, after being in marketing, I decided to go from looking for gold to selling the shovel. So I went from being a marketer myself mostly to then consulting with marketers, providing technology to marketers and things like that. And I became a salesperson, business development person, as well as a marketer. But if I look at the string, what's connecting it all, it's relationships. The reason I love sales is because I get to be across from someone talking and providing something that they need. I don't see anything wrong with sales. Like when you're saying, let's go to New Jersey, I'm like, you're going to help people and your business is going to do better.
Great. Right. Win.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong. I've actually consulted with churches back in the day, and I'm like, let's think about you have a message and you want to get it to someone. You have a business. It's a value exchange. Think about it like that. There's nothing wrong with you thinking about it like that. If you
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't even know what my point was.
Well, I know. I was just talking about being in the value that you're wanting to bring into the world is connection, human connection.
Yeah.
That's what fuels you, and that's kind of where you do your best work.
Yeah.
And so you're creating that. So that, I mean, that's I think that's how we got to that space.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's,
and it comes back to the thing I started talking about initially. The pain point that people have when they're doing work with me is, when they look at their daily actions, do their daily actions line up with their values?
Yeah.
And it doesn't frequently happen.
Yeah,
and so
get there.
That's painful to recognize, but then it's also liberating in terms of like, all right, let's make this happen.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I even brought up ayahuasca too, because ayahuasca is known for doing that specifically, like confronting the things that you don't want to. It's scary. I don't want to confront. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about my.
So you've brought that up like 4 times now. Is that part of your world?
No, not necessarily. Something that I'm very, very, very interested in, and especially my aunt actually was one of the first people in New Jersey to start getting medical marijuana. She has epilepsy. And I saw her go from like a cocktail of medicines to like now just smoking 3 times a day, like CBD based medicine, and smokes at night, a little bit of THC. So I've just kind of been expanding and looking into all the kind of alternative medicines out there, and things that, whether it was the government or society or big pharma, whatever you could call it, a mixture of all that has been kind of denying us. So like, how can ecstasy help people with PTSD? Right. What are the alternative things? Also, the funny thing with ayahuasca too, this is, or like peyote and mushrooms, this is something that existed for hundreds of thousands of years of people have been using. So like, how can we as a society have forgotten that, or it's such a terrible thing that we've denied it. Right.
Yeah. Plant-based medicines. I have no disagreement with you.
So
my own experiences with that have been varied. But and I have many friends who have engaged with that world with definitely with success, and it's I think we're definitely. Have you read Pollan's book about it?
I'm not, but I know what it is. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think we're definitely in a transitionary period.
Yeah. And I see you as part of that. That's why I keep bringing it up too, because in many ways, and maybe you wouldn't call yourself this, but like, you're a shaman. Right, taking people on an adventure. It's physical.
Yeah, as a guide. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I've connected the both in my head. I mean, maybe I didn't articulate it, but yeah, I see you as like, doing the same kind of thing, just a different type of adventure.
Yeah, I don't think I've actually opened my own heart to that as a label for it.
Yeah. And maybe shaman is not the right word, but
no, actually, I'm just taking that in. Like, I think there's definitely accuracy in that, in terms of holding a container, hold space for someone to go through a transitionary experience and to provide an experience that is experiential and deeply transformative and impactful.
And if
kudos,
that's
Leo.
The right definition, right? Like, how are you not a shaman?
I don't know. I think, I have to say, I think the pushback that I have around that, which is just in my own growth as a facilitator, is in the avatar of my work versus the individual.
I get that.
That's, and so, with other practitioners, we talk about this quite a bit, is like, we're humans in the world doing our own work, and we're providing an experience as well. And I think the moment that you step into not recognizing that your own shit stinks too, that's a problem.
I
Let's go.
respect that, and I agree with you, because I actually wouldn't want you to now, like, if I go to your website tomorrow, I don't want to see like the adventure.
Oh my God.
Right? Like, I think that's going to devalue you, and I think that ultimately is my marketing hat now, though. But I think it almost feels pretentious, and then you run into the risk of being like
super pretentious.
I'm better than, like, I hate people and then call
Yeah,
us marketing gurus. I'm like, I'm
Right.
learning every single freaking day.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I don't know anything. Like,
No, but I think it's a good reframe in terms of like, and this is one of the challenges that I found in my own profession is that people will be like, oh, so do you run, so you're a mountain guide?
yeah,
Well, not exactly. Oh, you're a coach? Well, not exactly. You know, it's like, but to frame it in terms of that, I mean, it's the shaman piece is like, wow, that's actually really, that's interesting. Yeah.
Well, you could explain it just like you just actually take this recording of what you just, the definition of a shaman. You say that. You never have to say the word shaman once.
Right. Yeah.
So, first of all, I got to say thank you for doing this. Like, this has been
absolutely. My pleasure. Yeah.
Fantastic time again, because I love being able to share your story and hopefully inspire other people. Heck, even help get you more business. Like, I just want to help everyone. Like,
thank you.
People going to you, it helps you and helps them. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with connecting them. So I asked 2 questions before I let anyone go.
Okay. Let's hear them.
Number one is, and there's a good transition. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard being in this world. Sometimes it's hard getting up out of bed to do things as an entrepreneur, as a regular person. If you're in a marriage that's not working, or you're in a friendship even that's not working, sometimes life is hard. Mm-hmm. How do you personally, as Matt, get through those days? Is it like having something bigger than yourself?
That's an easy question for me to answer.
Yeah. All right.
So I have an altar at home.
Okay.
Small space. It's a small wooden altar, and on it I have there's a candle and a stick of incense. There's a couple different items on there. There's like a little there's like a tea cloth.
Okay.
I'll take a picture of it and put it in the show notes.
Yeah, please. Yeah, I would love that.
So, and then there's an antler on it that has a representation of nature. There's a piton on it for a representation of my craft as a climber.
Okay.
And then
I actually don't even know what a piton is.
You'll sit in. I'll show you a picture. And then there's an old wrench on there for like the actual work of doing the physical work.
This is amazing.
And then I also have a king and a queen card, like from a deck of cards on there for creating relationship. So I have this altar, and I have a meditation cushion in front of it. Nice. And I spend a minimum of 5 minutes each morning when I wake up in that space. Minimum. Wow. It's like that's 5 minutes is nothing. Yeah. And in that space, I light the candle, light the incense, and I will literally just sit and breathe. And if I have more time that morning, I'll do a deeper exercise. Either it's like Wim Hof style breathing, or a meditative reading, or something like that. Mm-hmm. But that is the grounding that I do each morning to basically get my shit together. And by saying that is like getting out of my sleep mode, getting out of just my own head, my own story, challenges I have, and just focusing and centering for that time. Amazing. The altar piece has completely changed how I start my day. And so that's something I do with my clients too, is help them create that as like one piece of grounding.
It's amazing. I never thought about an altar. Like, obviously people talk about meditation and having a space, but never thought about it as an altar.
Yeah. Oh,
that's amazing.
And you can have them mobile too. Like you can have.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Different pieces. Like when I'm on the road, I'll just take a couple different things, keep it super simple.
Yeah.
But it's just a couple minutes, whether it's 5 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever it is. That's totally analog, Yeah. I mean, how much more basic can you have than a candle?
Yeah.
It's like, and breathing.
Yeah. That's amazing. Except maybe now some people create an altar of like their cell phone and their iPad.
Yeah, Jesus.
That's amazing. My ex-girlfriend used to have a pyramid that she kind of like meditated underneath. So she had a bit of a shrine. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
I never thought
Yeah.
about it. I never actually put them two and two together. That's amazing. So the second question I was asked before I let anyone go is now, where can people find you? Is promote yourself?
Yeah. Okay.
Where are you talking
So-
next? Website?
Yeah. So mattwalkeradventure.com.
Mhm.
And, there's, you can go to the shop page and there's some free stuff on there. There's some paid stuff on there. Everything from my book to some recordings to, a way of, connecting the dots between the values and actions piece. I do this thing called the ideal day. Just how to frame and set up your day so that you can create enough space. We were talking a little bit earlier about that transitionary phase
Yep.
between roles. Tag that. This spring, this winter actually. So January, I'm going to be down in Joshua Tree taking clients climbing. So, Leo, you're going to get a chance to do that.
Yeah, please.
But so what I encourage people to do is reach out to me directly. Like, I think, go to the website, check it out, and then shoot me an email. Something super simple. I reply to every email personally. I don't, I use virtual assistants and I use my assistants for all kinds of things in my business. But when it comes to direct contact with people, that's all me. So, so I go to the website, download some stuff, check it out, shoot me an email, ask a question, engage in dialogue.
Awesome. And what's that website again?
It's mattwalkeradventure.com.
Fantastic. Matt.
And so we'll do this piece as well. So what I'm going to do is in the show notes, we'll have a link.
Yeah.
I'm going to craft a 10-day challenge for your listeners.
Oh, I love this.
And so that'll be on there. Just go ahead and click on the link, go to the 10-day challenge, and you'll see directions there, and we'll engage that piece too.
Thank you for offering that. Thank you for being on. It was an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait for people to reach out to you.
Great. Thanks, Leo.
All right, Matt. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.